my fellow oddities, welcome to a new video, and today I'm not doing the typical Uncommon Oddity Mortal Kombat video. No, this isn't a reaction, this isn't a ranking, this isn't a gameplay of some Mortal Kombat game, this isn't an adaptation arena, it's not any of those things. In fact, most of you guys probably aren't going to know what the hell I'm talking about half the time in this video, but this is something I wanted to do for a while now, so here it is. A Mortal Kombat concept chapter for Dead by Daylight. For all my Mortal Kombat oddities that are just like, what's happening? Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game where 4 survivors must escape a killer who's trying to kill them, obviously, because they're a killer. Basically, those 4 survivors have to repair 5 generators throughout this map before the killer can pick them off one by one and place them on these hooks that sacrifice them to the entity, which is like some super powerful force that keeps them all in like this game of chase forever, for eternity, because he's the entity. This game is mostly known for its licenses. This game has a lot of what us Mortal Kombat fans would call guest characters. So much to the point where you can't even really call it a fully original game because the licensed characters are so integral to the game overall that like you can't really say it's just like this one idea from this one team. No, it's more of a joint collaboration, which I have no problem with. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's really, really cool actually. This game holds such characters as Leatherface, Pinhead, Michael Myers, Amanda from Saw, or the pig thing from Saw, because she's the one wearing the outfit, at least in like the first few movies, but then she like dies and like all that stuff happens, but that's too much to get into right now. You got Freddy Krueger, but not the good one, the one that sucked. You got Ghostface, you got the Demogorgon. No, not the Demogorgon, not anymore. But hey, at least you got Jace. Oh, that's not Jason. Huh. Oh well. But the big question is, can Mortal Kombat fit into Dead by Daylight as a chapter? And, you know, they have done video game chapters before. Resident Evil was done twice with Wesker and Nemesis, and Silent Hill had Pyramid Head in the game as well. But that's not really the problem here. The problem is that Mortal Kombat is not really a horror game franchise, is it? It's more like an action fighting game, of course, because it's a fighting game. People fight. So can it fit into Dead by Daylight? My opinion? Hell yeah. Listen, Mortal Kombat has been doing horror characters for over a decade now. You got Freddy Krueger, but again, not the good one, the one that sucked. You got Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, Alien, Predator. Jason, Alien, and Predator aren't even in Dead by Daylight. Alright? So, listen. Mortal Kombat, it got its fair share of horror characters as well. Alright? And there are characters that definitely fit the horror genre. I mean, the most obvious one is my beloved, right here, Bihan. Noob Saibot, I love you so much. You're right here as well. I love your muscular biceps, arms. Beautiful. I love your glowing blue eyes. But then you have characters like Draman, Moloch, Meat. Yes, Meat is technically a joke character, but like still, if you really consider Meat a horror character, you could. Not to mention the Crypt in all 3 of the games can be pretty freaky at times. So let's not act like Mortal Kombat is just completely out of the blue, like has no chance of being in Dead by Daylight, especially when they did a poll with a bunch of licensed games and Mortal Kombat was one of them. Alright, so they're at least considering it a little bit, alright? But yeah, that poll is what inspired me to make this video, and I know this video is very late because that poll came out probably like a month ago at this point, but listen, alright, Mortal Kombat 1 had a bunch of reveals, had a bunch of combat casts, a bunch of other stuff I had to get to first, alright? Now we're finally here, and without further ado, let's get started on my Mortal Kombat Dead by Daylight chapter. Concept. This isn't official. Unless Dead by Daylight, unless you want to hit me up, like, we could do some good work together, you and me. Starting off, I want to kind of brush past cosmetics. Technically, these chapters aren't supposed to really have cosmetics. They usually come out as their own like separate thing a little later on. They don't really release with the actual chapter itself, but there are definitely options here. Specifically with Killer, you got characters like Oni, who could make a great Shao Kahn. You got a character like Deathslinger, who could make a great Aaron Black. You got a character like, probably my personal favorite, the Twins, who could make a very, very great Ferrator. Like, that's almost spot on there. And not to mention my beloved again, but there's a character in Dead by Daylight named the Wraith, and, you know, Noob Saibot's a Wraith. That could be a good skin. As for the Survivor side, there's not really as many options, but I did think of one really good one. Dwight as Mocap. Yeah, I see the vision. But brushing past that, let's get started with the stuff that's actually gonna like matter, and that's firstly the map. Which Mortal Kombat stage or setting could fit into Dead by Daylight? Now, the first thing I thought of was Shang Tsung's Island. And yeah, that's the one I went with. That would be my map that I would choose. Yeah, I don't really see there being any other options here. Sure, you could have the Netherrealm, but I feel like that would be a bit sensory overload for Dead by Daylight. Plus, there's a bunch of lava everywhere. It would not really fit. It's glowing, it's red, there's stuff happening. Yes, I get there's different planes in the Netherrealm, which different planes could probably work a bit better, but if they're going to do the Netherrealm, they're going to do the one that everyone knows, which is L. And I don't really think that would fit in Dead by Daylight. Another one is the Living Forest, but firstly, we already have a whole bunch of forest maps in Dead by Daylight, and the Living Forest is a bit more packed in. It would feel a bit more claustrophobic, which is not good for Dead by Daylight. I get some people are going to be like, well, claustrophobia, that's a thing people are scared of, but you got to look at it in the gameplay sense, and like, if you're running around, it's going to be hard to like not get stuck on stuff. You're going to not be able to have like correct loops and stuff if you're just all packed in with the forest and the trees and the bushes and all that stuff. I just don't think it would fit. Although it would be a really nice aesthetic with the faces and the trees and the moving, and it would be definitely pretty scary. But I just think Shang Tsung's Island is the best one to go with. I mean, it's one that you already have a fully modeled setting for with Mortal Kombat 11's Crypt. And sure, they're not going to one-for-one recreate that because Mortal Kombat 11's Crypt is a lot more in-depth and detailed than a Dead by Daylight map, especially with all the interiors and stuff like that. But there's definitely a way that you can implement that map, put it into Dead by Daylight, and make it work, just like they did with RPD with Resident Evil. Sure, that map was screwed up for a pretty long time until they had to split it into two maps, but you guys get what I mean. As long as they don't mess up again and just like make it work the first time. When it comes to the aesthetic of Shang Tsung's Island, I believe they would probably take the ruined version from Mortal Kombat 11, mostly because the first version from Mortal Kombat 1, first of all, is really, really colorful and bright, and there's going to be not a good mesh of killers and survivors with that type of arena. Like, it's daytime. I don't even know if there's a map in Dead by Daylight that's at daytime. And the other thing is that it's not the one that they have a fully modeled version of. The MK11 Crypt was the ruined version, and that's probably what they're going to do in here, unless they want to do like a revamp, like fix everything that's ruined in the ruined version of the stage, make the sky like brighter and stuff, but I just don't think they would go through the trouble to do that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the map. There's not really much more to say. Like, I don't know. The map is just the map. That's just how it is. But for killers, survivors, there we can go more in depth. And speaking of which, let's start off with the survivors. Now with Mortal Kombat, I'm sorry, you can't just have one survivor, alright? There have been chapters in the past, mainly the Resident Evil chapters, that have had two survivors, and I think Mortal Kombat is just one of those chapters that needs two. Like, you can't just have one, alright? You can't just have like a killer and survivor. You gotta have killer, two survivors. I think that would work a whole lot better. Now, which pairings from Mortal Kombat could possibly be in Dead by Daylight? Well, you got quite a few pairings. You got Raiden, Fujin. You got Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Bi-Han, Kuai Liang. You got Hanzo, Kuai Liang. You got Hanzo, Bi-Han. That one makes a little less sense, but I do think it would be interesting to have two survivors that don't like each other. I think that would be pretty cool. You even got the Deadly Alliance, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi. There's so many options when it comes to pairings in Mortal Kombat. But do you guys realize the problem with all those characters that I just mentioned? Yeah, their abilities compared to the other survivors are a bit OP. To the point where it doesn't really make sense for them to just pop into the entity's realm and be super terrified and scared of a guy with a knife. Like, they would just beat him up easily. So we can't have like gods, powerful martial artists with fireballs coming out of their hands. We can't have sorcerers or any of that stuff, all right? We gotta keep it grounded. And with that, I believe the two best survivors to include in a Mortal Kombat chapter would be Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. I think this is by far the best pairing I could have picked, and that's because, first of all, female survivor, male survivor, equality, but also I think they're a bit more grounded to the point where it's not as humiliating to have a guy with just a machete and bear traps carrying them and then like flailing around in his arms, unable to escape. You know, it's not as humiliating. It is still a little bit, but to be honest, it's not as bad as like Raiden, the Thunder God, being absolutely destroyed by a guy with a knife. Yeah, that would be shameful. And I know Johnny Cage does have his shadow abilities, but there are other characters in the game with minor abilities, and I think that kind of fits better as a minor ability as opposed to something like shooting fireballs from his hand. Even though, yes, Johnny Cage does technically shoot fireballs, but it's not as like prominent as like Liu Kang's fireballs or Sub-Zero's ice balls. There's definitely ways to implement Johnny's abilities into the game that don't make him seem super OP and able to blast every single killer out of existence just like that. And as for Sonya, I mean, all of the Resident Evil characters are like cops, military officers, stuff like that, so I don't think it's too far of a stretch that Sonya couldn't be placed with all of them. And clearly the entity has the ability to prevent these characters from using their gadgets and stuff that they normally use, because none of the characters from Resident Evil use guns or anything like that. So Sonya's ring blasters would probably disappear. So and just go pew 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 and all the killers are dead. And now is the point in the video where I'm going to start getting a little bit more in depth. For those who don't know, in Dead by Daylight, every character, survivor, and killer has 3 unique perks to them. So that means they have a set of perks or just kind of abilities that they can do that no one else can do until you level them up and you're able to give those perks to other survivors or other killers. So technically these perks are universal, but you have to level up a specific survivor or specific killer in order to use them on the rest. Each perk has 3 levels: the yellow version, which is the weakest version, the green version, which is kind of the middle in between best and the worst, and then you have the purple version, which is the best one. So when I'm describing these perks and I say this thing happens for 1, 2, or 3 seconds, that's what I'm referring to. Level 1 is 1 second, level 2, 2 seconds, level 3, 3 seconds. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. For all my Dead by Daylight people who are probably just coming here for the first time, hello, please subscribe, that would be nice. I do Mortal Kombat content. If that's not your thing, then I guess I understand. You don't have to subscribe, but I would prefer if you did, because I might do this again in the future. But it would probably be the reverse. It would probably be Dead by Daylight into Mortal Kombat, but still, subscribe at least just for that video. But for all my Dead by Daylight players, probably all makes sense to you, but for all my Mortal Kombat players, I hope you're getting along well. Yeah, thank you for being subscribers. Thank you for watching my content. I love you guys. That's not a heart, that's the Illuminati. That's a heart though. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started with Johnny and Sonya's 3 specific perks, specifically starting with Johnny. Johnny's first perk is called Warrior Bread, and this is the perk that kind of implements what I was talking about earlier, his special shadow abilities, specifically the ones that he had in Mortal Kombat X. Here's the description of the perk. You are consumed by an ancient force when you see a teammate in grave danger. When in position for a protection hit, press the active ability button to shield yourself from becoming injured or going down from an attack for the next 5, 10, or 15 seconds, or until you move out of position for a protection hit. After successfully blocking an attack, Warrior Bread disables for the remainder of the trial. The perk and its effects are disabled if the exit gates are powered. So basically what this means is that a protection hit in Dead by Daylight is when you go in front of a killer who is chasing another survivor and you basically body block them and protect them from being attacked by that killer. And with this ability, you'll be able to basically press a button and you'll be able to be like shield from an attack when you're in position for this protection hit. If you press the button and then move out of the way for a protection hit, then it doesn't work anymore. You have to be in the way of the killer while he's chasing another survivor. and when the killer hits you, you won't take any damage. And this ability can only be used once, so you'll have to use it sparingly and basically probably just save it for those clutch moments where, you know, the killer is chasing a survivor. It's like you're the last 2 survivors left, and then like you're healthy. The other survivor, he's about to die. He's about to be in a painful situation where he's brutally mutilated and all that stuff. But you get in the way, and then you use the button, and then hua, and then you get hit. You're protected, and then you're like, "Go, friend, escape!" And then you realize you're the only 2 survivors left, and there's only 2 gens done, so there's really nowhere for him to go. But yeah. And the perks and its effects are disabled if the exit gates are powered, means once all the generators are done and the exit gates are able to be opened, that means you can't use this perk anymore, even if you didn't use it before. Now, the only reason I really added this is because certain other perks, which are kind of in the same realm of being like sort of clutch perks, are disabled during the end game or when the exit gates are powered, so I just decided to put it onto this one. I don't know if it makes it any more powerful or any less powerful. And speaking of that, I want to clarify for you guys that I am not an expert in Dead by Daylight gameplay. All right, I have less than 1,000 hours in the game. In Dead by Daylight terms, that's basically a baby player. All right, a baby player. So don't go too harsh on me if I introduce a perk that happens to be super OP, especially like when combined with another perk, or super weak, or a perk that conflicts with another perk or something like that. Don't get super mad at me, because listen, I'm just doing this for the fun, all right? I'm not considering every single perk in the game or every single situation in the game before I make these perks, all right? And you know what? To be fair, neither does the studio at Dead by Daylight, so I think I'm fine. Anyways, I really like this perk. I think it's the best kind of showcase of a character's, well, character out of all the perks that I have in this video. So really neat perk. I'm not sure how strong it is. Like I just said, I'm not an expert in gameplay. I don't know how powerful this perk would be, especially since it only is able to be used once. So I don't know. You Dead by Daylight guys, you're gonna have to tell me how strong this perk is. But you know, I understand that some perks you're not gonna be able to understand how strong it is until you use it. So I don't know. Johnny's next perk is definitely a perk that isn't that strong unless you are a pro Dead by Daylight player who can loop killers for like 20 minutes or something. You have mastered the ability to stay incredibly silent, even in the most dire situations. For every 10 seconds spent in chase, decrease grunts of pain, breathing, and footstep sounds by 2, 4, or 5%. At 100%, all rushed actions will produce no noise notification. This basically means that every 10 seconds in chase, you will decrease your noise by 5%, and once that 5% adds up to 100, you will produce no noise notification when you do things like a rushed vault over a pallet or a window, or a rush into a locker, which normally those sorts of things would produce both a audio and visual cue for the killers to be able to see and hear, but if you get to 100%, those will not happen. And if you do the math with this perk, 5% every 10 seconds means that you would have to loop the killer for 200 seconds without losing them, 200 seconds straight to get to 100%, and for all your rushed actions to no longer produce noise notifications, which is a pretty long time relative to the ability of your average Dead by Daylight player. Normally they last not too long in chase, or at least I don't, but I don't know, maybe I'm trash. Yeah, probably a skill issue, honestly. But yeah, I think this is an okay perk. I mostly just added it because I wanted a Ninja Mime-like perk, and this is the best that I could come up with, which isn't already in the game. So this is what I have. And Johnny's last perk is definitely the most fun perk that I have in this entire video, and it's Stunt Double. You have brought your cast members into the trial. While repairing a generator, press the active ability button to spawn a double of yourself on the gen to take your place. If any survivor begins working on the generator, the double will be destroyed. If the killer attacks the double, they will become stunned and the double will be destroyed. Stunt Double has a cooldown of 80, 70, or 60 seconds. So this basically means if you're working on a generator, you can press that button, you will be kicked off the generator, and in your place where you just were, a double of yourself, a fake double, will be where you were working on the gen. It won't actually make progress on the gen, but it'll just be there to trick killers. And if any survivor comes to work on it, if you start working on it again, then that double will be destroyed. So you can't work on it while the double is there. And if the killer is actually tricked by this and attacks the double, then they will become stunned and the double will be destroyed. And there's a cooldown of 80, 70, or 60 seconds, which basically means you can't use it again for that amount of time. I know this wouldn't be the greatest perk in the world. I just think it would be really, really funny. I know it wouldn't be too beneficial, especially since it kicks you off the gen, and unless you want to destroy the double, then you can't start working on it again. But I just had to include it. All right, it was an idea I had, and it was just so cool, so fun. So I have it here. Now we're moving on to Sonya Blade's perks, and her perks are a lot more simple and they're a lot less fun, I guess, but they are more consistently actually pretty good. Firstly, we have Tactical Advantage. You take advantages of the openings you see. For each missed basic attack or special attack by the killer in chase, you gain a 5, 6, or 7% haste status for 10 seconds. This basically means every single time a killer swings and misses you, you will become faster for 10 seconds. And I know this is going to be a bit of a toxic perk, because it appeals to the type of players that will post like ultra looping killer for 5 gens compilation video, and I just think that's kind of funny. All right, I know this is going to be one of those perks that people are going to call super annoying, because like you're becoming faster after missing a hit, and like I don't know, for some reason missing a hit in Dead by Daylight is like a super shameful thing or something. Like I get it, it's like kind of being juked, but I don't really care. I think this is a fun perk. I know it wouldn't be super great because most killers are able to hit survivors pretty assuredly, so I know it wouldn't be super great, but I think it would be funny to see people's reactions to it and people being annoyed by it. The next Sonya perk we have is Focused Rescue. This one's kind of based off the fact that Sonya and Jax and other Special Forces members are like always saving one another, and I just thought that was kind of funny, so I made it into a perk. And it's kind of a stealth perk, so basically you take an educated approach when saving others. When within 8, 12, or 16 meters, M-E-T-E-R-S meters, not M-E-T-R-E-S meters. I'm American, all right? You're lucky that I even use the metric system in the first place. Oh, say can you see? Yeehaw! When within 8, 12, or 16 meters of a hooked survivor, you will make no noise notifications or scratch marks. So this basically means when you're within that range of a hooked survivor or a survivor that has been hooked and is now needing to be saved, you will not make any noise notifications. So like with Johnny's perk, it basically means if you do something, a rushed action that usually would get a notification for the killer, it won't happen with this perk and when you're in this range, and you won't make scratch marks. For those who don't know, scratch marks are basically like red scratches in the ground that you make when you run around, and killers are able to see it and track you with it. But with this perk, when you're in range, you will not make any scratch marks, so they won't be able to track you. I'm also deciding in my head whether the actual unhook should make a noise notification or not, because normally in the game, when you unhook someone, you will get a noise notification as a killer. But with this perk, it could be cool to not have that noise notification, but at the same time, is that a bit too strong to the point where the killer isn't going to know unless they visually see that the person has been unhooked? They won't know it. I don't know. You guys decide in the comments. Is that OP or is this just fine? But yeah, I think this is a pretty decent stealth perk either way, and I'm honestly surprised that it hasn't been implemented in the game in some other way. I don't know, maybe it has. I don't know. I haven't played the game in a few weeks, all right? So maybe there has been a perk released in that time, or maybe there's just some super obscure perk that I haven't heard about that does this exact same thing, but I doubt it, all right? I got a strong memory, all right? Sonya's last perk is Escape Plan. You keep your contingencies in mind when making an escape. When opening an exit gate with no progress, see the aura of the opposite exit gate for 4, 5, or 6 seconds. Now this one is an endgame perk, which means when the gates are powered, which like I said earlier, means all the generators are complete, then you can go over to the exit gate and start working on it. And opening an exit gate definitely takes a little bit of time, so if a killer comes by, they're able to interrupt you. So with this perk, if you start opening an exit gate, you'll be able to see the other one since there's 2 of them, and so if a killer comes by, you're able to drop that one, run off, and maybe if you're able to escape the killer, get to the second one, and since you'll be able to have seen it earlier, it'll be easier to actually find it. Now with this perk, you'll only be able to see the aura of the other exit gate within the first 6 seconds that you start opening an exit gate with no progress. So if it already has progress, or if you work on it a little bit and then you start working on it again, then the aura won't reveal to you. So you gotta be quick. You gotta start opening that thing and immediately look, all right, that's where the other one is. Keep that in mind. I like this perk, and all three of the Sonya perks are pretty decent. There's not really any that are particularly great or any that are particularly bad. They all have their own separate niches, their own separate situations that I think they're good in, and yeah, I think this is a pretty good set of perks for Sonya. And that's pretty much it when it comes to my survivors for my concept for the Dead by Daylight Mortal Kombat chapter. Now, we get to the part you guys have all been waiting for. The killer. Now, when it comes to the killer, there is a decent amount of characters that you can take from the Mortal Kombat roster and make into a decent killer in Dead by Daylight. You got Shao Kahn, main villain. You got Shang Tsung, sorcerer, creepy, old guy. Could definitely work. He's another villain as well. Sub-Zero, specifically Bi-Han, could work, especially if they're going with the 2021 version. It was legitimately scary. You got Goro, kind of the face of the Mortal Kombat species and otherworldly monsters, and Dead by Daylight has a lot of otherworldly monsters and creatures and stuff like that, so Goro could definitely work. Mentioning my beloved 3 times now in this video, Noob Saibot is another character that could work, even though technically I already mentioned him with Sub-Zero and Bi-Han, but I don't know, one of them can be the skin for the other. But there's a very, very big problem with every single one of those characters. And that problem is that none of them are Mortal Kombat's poster boy. Yeah, guys, like, honestly, think about it. Do you really think the team behind Dead by Daylight isn't going to have Scorpion in the game in some way? If they get the chance to have the biggest Mortal Kombat character by far in Dead by Daylight, they're going to take that chance. And does he work as a skin for another character? Not really, I wouldn't say. Does he work as a map? No, you can't have Scorpion as a map. Like, you can have the Netherrealm, but you can't have the Scorpion as the... That's not... No. That's just... No. Could he be a survivor? Hanzo could, but Scorpion doesn't really work. And plus, he falls under that category that I talked about earlier about having 2 OP abilities. But you know what aspect of Dead by Daylight doesn't really care about OP abilities? Yeah, that's right. The killer. And so I gotta go with Scorpion as the killer for a Mortal Kombat Dead by Daylight chapter. And listen, guys, Scorpion, not only he can be scary, if they change up his design a little bit, give him more of a MK9 look, or even Legacy had, I don't really like that design, but it's definitely a scarier design, and I would be okay with it being his default in a Dead by Daylight chapter, just because it fits Dead by Daylight a little better than it does fit Mortal Kombat. But just a scarier type of Scorpion design could definitely work, and with his power, that could work as well. Speaking of which, let's get straight into his power. Now, I'm not going to describe every single little detail that I have for it, because it would take a really, really long time, but I'm going to describe it as best I can, just down to its necessary details. So Scorpion's power in this concept would be Flames of Hell. And basically the way you use this power is by holding the power button, which will cause Scorpion's hand to like flicker up on the screen, and like flames will like flow out from his hands. Something like that. And there's 2 things you can do from that position. You can use the active ability button to slam your fiery fist into the ground and shoot fire in the direction that you're facing, and whoever happens to be in front of it, no matter the distance, so it'll go out infinitely. If there's a survivor in front of that, they will scream when it comes into contact with them, and you will then be able to teleport directly to them. So this would function a bit like Pinhead's teleport, but, you know, of course the activation ability is a bit different, but the actual like act of teleporting would basically be the same thing. So an action happens, and then you're now able to teleport to that person, not like right on top of them or anything, but like a few meters back.
The box. You opened it. I came.
And if you don't want to do that slam, which I call the Hellfire Slam, then from that position, the Flames of Hell position, you can instead use the classic spear move. If the spear shoots out and hits a survivor, then it's almost like a reverse Wesker. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Wesker in Dead by Daylight, he has this dash ability where he lunges forward, grabs the survivor, and throws him onto the floor. Instead, with Scorpion, it's the reverse of that. He pulls them in, grabs them, and then slams them on the floor. Now, if this spear does not hit anyone, then it's not just going to go out infinitely. It's going to have a limit and then return back to you. But if it hits something that is not a survivor, and it's like an inanimate object, whether it's a generator, a tree, a wall, something like that, it's going to get stuck, and you'll have to like pull on it for a few seconds and then pull it back to your hand. This could be used by survivors in order to juke the spear. So say a survivor is in front of a wall and you throw the spear at them and then the survivor moves out of the way. The spear is now lodged in the wall. They have time to get out while you're trying to get it out of being stuck. And that's the abilities you have with Flames of Hell. But Scorpion has another ability that you can't control, but it's pretty powerful. This ability is called Rage, and Rage starts off in the trial or the game as completely empty. But as you get stunned by pallets or flashlights, as survivors are unhooked, as survivors escape you and chase, the rage meter will slowly start to fill. And once it becomes full, once it reaches its full potential, its max, then you will activate Rage. During Rage, Scorpion is much faster and much stronger, and he's able to down survivors in one hit. And there's even this radar that spews out every 8 seconds. And once that radar hits, then every survivor will scream. So basically, survivors are revealing their location every 8 seconds. And not only that, but Scorpion's terror radius, for those who don't know, a terror radius in Dead by Daylight is the radius in which you can start hearing the killer coming. So basically your heartbeat will start to pump and you'll start hearing like the killer's music, and that'll kind of let you know when the killer is coming. That terror radius for Scorpion will consume the entire map, basically. So you won't be able to escape the terror radius at all, and so you won't know really if he's coming for you or coming for another survivor, because you'll just always be hearing it. And Scorpion will also have the ability to Mori, or what us Mortal Kombat fans would call fatality, a survivor who has been hooked twice. And if you down them, you'll be able to just kill them instantly without having to hook them again. No, this will not be like Tombstone Myers, where you can just grab a completely healthy survivor who hasn't been hooked yet and just kill them. Like, no, that would be stupid. No. You have to have them hooked twice, and then down them, and then you can kill them. Brutality. No, it would be a fatality. And, of course, the Mori, or the fatality, would be Toasty, easily. Like, it, not only is it like a classic fatality, but it also fits Dead by Daylight's more tame finishing moves, because Dead by Daylight is releasing in countries that don't like super violent gore and stuff, so they have to not make the gore as gory. But in Mortal Kombat, of course, that's not a problem. But Toasty Fatality is not a very gory fatality at all. In fact, probably one of the least gory fatalities in the entire series, so it would be usable. Now, Survivor mains might be sitting here going, well, he's in rage mode. Now what do? Do I just like sit here and die? Well, no. First of all, rage mode only lasts 60 seconds, and after that time is up, he'll just return to normal. And not only that, but rage mode can only be used once. And since when you activate rage mode is not up to the actual killer, it's kind of up to the survivors in a way, it means that you can kind of have more control over it, and you won't really have to worry about it after the first time it happens. And the last thing is gongs. Now, gongs would be a new special interaction for survivors. Basically, just like Sadako's TVs or Plague's fountains or anything else kind of like that that places stuff around the map, gongs would be a new item or structure, I don't know what you would call it, that gets placed around the map kind of randomly. And normally these gongs just kind of sit there. They're not interactable, they don't do anything. But once Scorpion goes into rage mode, they become lit. When a gong is lit, a survivor can run over to it, hit it, and it will become unlit. But this is where the fun begins. If you hit a gong while Scorpion is nearby within range, then a warrior, a fighter from the Mortal Kombat franchise, will pop out from out of nowhere and start attacking Scorpion, and they will fight for a few seconds before Scorpion gets rid of him and is able to chase the survivor again. But by that point, the survivor is already long gone. And not only that, but successfully using a gong and having Scorpion fight someone takes him out of rage mode, and he's not able to use it again. So you can just take him out with the gong, and that's it. This is by far my favorite part of the entire chapter concept. The idea of a survivor hitting a gong and then, I don't know, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Sub-Zero, one of those characters is popping out, fighting Scorpion in the middle of this Dead by Daylight thing, and the survivor running away. That would be so sick. And just thinking up of it, I gotta have it now, you know? Like, Dead by Daylight, studio, team, whatever you're called, hit me up, man. Like, this is a sick idea. And that's it for Scorpion's powers, but every power in Dead by Daylight has add-ons, around 19 of them, or 20 if you count the Blighted Serum, but not only are those discontinued technically, but they're also the same on every killer, so it doesn't really matter if I talk about it or not. So we're gonna go through Scorpion's unique add-ons. I'm kind of gonna speed run this, and I really want to clarify before I get into these add-ons that I am not a gameplay expert, all right? I can't even like figure out a pattern between the add-ons on Dead by Daylight between each killer. I can't figure out why a certain add-on is where it is, or why a certain add-on is as good or as bad or as rare or as common as it is. It's just how it is, all right? I tried my best, so here you go. I'm gonna speed run through this because there are a lot of add-ons, so let's get straight into it. For the common add-ons, we have Torn Demon Wing, increases rage gain rate by 10%. Lava Rock, reduces the time spent fighting a warrior by 1 second. Dungeon Bar, increases the Scorpion's movement speed while Flames of Hell is active by 5%. Burnt Rope, increases range of spear by 1.5 meters. And then when it comes to the uncommon add-ons, we have Ripped Map Piece, increases range of spear by 2 meters. Bloody Yellow Cloth, reduces the cooldown time of Hellfire Slam by 5 seconds. Scorpion Tail, increases the teleportation speed by 20%. Broken Mask, increases the rate of detection during rage by 0.5 seconds. And I want to clarify this, is that rate of detection is the radar thing that I was talking about with the rage mode. So every 8 seconds as base kit, every 8 seconds that's going to come out and it's going to make the survivor scream. But with this add-on, that's going to be reduced by 0.5 seconds. Now that doesn't seem really good, but especially with a ability that's as powerful as that, like knowing where survivors are every 8 seconds, and just the fact that time in this game is very strict, 0.5 seconds makes a pretty big difference. And this also isn't that like high up of a rare add-on, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. And the last one for uncommon add-ons is Kusarigama, reduces stun duration after hitting an inanimate object with a spear by 0.5 seconds. Again, doesn't seem like a lot, but in this game, time is of the essence. Next, we have the rare add-ons. Firstly, Eye of a Revenant, see auras of all gongs on the map for 6 seconds once rage activates. Shirai Ryu Flag, increases rate of detection during rage by 1.5 seconds. Katana Shard, increases teleportation speed by 30%. Ball and Chain, or Moloch's Ball and Chain, increases range of spear by 2 meters. And Battle Axe, increases rage gain rate by 20%. Now we're on to the very rare add-ons. This is the point where things start to get a bit stronger and also change up the gameplay of Scorpion a bit more. Firstly, we have Mask of Drawman. All survivors hit with the Hellfire Slam suffer from the Oblivious status effect for 40 seconds. The Oblivious status effect basically makes it so your terror radius cannot be heard, so you can sneak up on survivors very, very easily. And this is going to be used after Hellfire Slam, which allows you to teleport to them, so pretty strong perk, honestly. Next, we have Frozen Hand, or the Frozen Hand of Sub-Zero. All survivors suffer from the Exhausted status effect during Rage. This basically means once you activate Rage, the survivors will become exhausted, and exhausted means that a lot of the very, very strong perks that are in this game cannot be used. So the most popular perks that are very, very strong and specifically help during chase will not work anymore. So it's going to be much easier to down people. Next, we have Sorcerer's Blade, or Quan Chi's Blade, increases the duration of rage by 10 seconds. Pretty self-explanatory. And then we have Oni's Severed Head, or Moloch's Severed Head. He has 2 appearances in the add-ons, which is pretty funny. Hellfire Slam damages any generators it comes into contact with, which means when you use the Hellfire Slam and it hits a generator, now it'll start to regress instead of just nothing happening. Now lastly, we have the add-ons that are supposed to be the strongest, but they're not always in the actual game, but I made them the strongest. And firstly, we have Charred Heart, or the Charred Heart of Sub-Zero, aka Bihan. The Scorpion begins the trial with Rage active, so as soon as you begin the game, you immediately start with Rage active. It lasts 60 seconds, and then you can't use it again. So this is one that you don't want to like use too often, I guess. Like, you don't want to just begin the trial with Rage active and then just not have it for the rest of the game. So you're gonna have to be selective with when you want to use it. Now we have the add-on that by far changes the most about Scorpion's gameplay, and it is Shinnok's Amulet. Hellfire Slam will now injure healthy survivors and put injured survivors into deep wound. This basically means when you use Hellfire Slam and it hits someone, instead of making them scream, it's going to make them injured. And if they're already injured, it'll put them into deep wound, which means they'll basically have to mend themselves. Basically means they'll have to take the time to heal themselves, or else they're going to go down. Another ability this one has is the same as we just talked about a little earlier. Hellfire Slam damages any generators it comes into contact with. I believe that was for the Moloch Severed Head one. And yeah, it's basically just the same thing. And then lastly, the Scorpion can no longer teleport after a successful Hellfire Slam. That is basically kind of the downside to this add-on, because it would be very strong if you could use Hellfire Slam, injure someone, and then immediately teleport to them and probably get it down pretty quickly. So I didn't want to make it too powerful, so I added that downside. So that's it for the add-ons. Hopefully that didn't last too long, but yeah, now we have the Scorpion's attributes. I know I call him the Scorpion. That's because in Dead by Daylight, before a character's name, you call him the, which just how they do it. I don't know why. But yeah, Killer's attributes is basically just like pretty basic stuff: movement speed, breaking speed, vault speed, height, stuff like that. So we're just going to quickly go over that with Scorpion. So with the Scorpion's attribute, first off, we have his movement speed, 4.6 meters per second, which is just the base movement speed for every single killer in the game. Now, I know some people might be like, well, technically Scorpion is a ranged killer, and ranged killers in Dead by Daylight generally are supposed to be 4.4 meters, a little slower, because they have abilities that let them hit people from afar. So to let them do that and then just like run up to you would be a bit unfair. Now, I'm not sure if I would really call the Scorpion a ranged killer. Yes, he has a ranged weapon with his spear, and that's very similar to the Deathslinger's spear, but I just don't think it's really the same thing, especially since he has other abilities than just his ranged weapon. And I think I would more similarly put the spear in comparison to Wesker, and Wesker is not considered a ranged killer. He walks or runs at 4.6 meters, so I would more put it in that range. But there are also other ranged killers that walk at 4.6 meters. You got the Plague. She pukes. That's going to sound crazy to any Mortal Kombat fans watching that don't know about Dead by Daylight. But yes, there was a woman who is infected with a plague that pukes on people in Dead by Daylight. She is not considered a ranged killer. Even a character like the Blight, he moves at super speeds when he's using his power. So realistically, when he's not using his power, he should be 4.4 meters just to bounce it out. But no, he's still 4.6. So I think Scorpion having this semi-ranged attack is fine when he moves at 4.6 meters. And when he goes into rage mode, he gets even faster. He becomes 4.9 meters. Now I was going to make it 5 meters per second, but I thought that might be a little too much. So I put it down to just 4.9, which is a 0.3 meter difference between normal and rage mode. Next we have the terror radius, which again is just the base killer 32 meter terror radius. And of course, when it goes into rage mode, like I said earlier, it becomes infinite, covers the entire map. I thought that was an interesting thing to do, because normally when you're messing with a killer's terror radius, or you want to make a killer more stealthy or something like that, some ability to sneak up on survivors, you just get rid of the terror radius altogether. And I thought, what if you did the reverse? What if you just made the terror radius universal? Like, that could kind of give the same effect. Maybe not as strong, but it could kind of do the same thing, and it could kind of throw off survivors in a way that's a bit more unique. So that's what I did. Vault speed, again, it's the base 1.7 seconds, and during rage mode it becomes 1.3 seconds, and the vault speed is basically when you step over a window or something like that, and this can make you a little bit faster at doing that when you're in rage mode. And we also have the break speed, which again is the normal base 2.34 seconds, and it becomes 1.98 during rage. The 1.98 comes from the Brutal Strength 2 level 2 perk, which basically makes it so you break pallets faster. I made that base kit during rage mode for the Scorpion. And lastly, we have the height, which gets its own slide because the font was too big on the other slide, and I was too lazy to make it smaller, because then I would have to edit a whole bunch of stuff and that would have been long. So I just made a completely new slide and have this. So now you can just focus completely on the height right in front of your screen. Voila. And this was probably a waste of time, honestly. His height is average, and it's also average during rage mode, because as far as I'm aware, Scorpion does not get shorter or taller when he gets angry. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, though. Maybe I haven't noticed. And yeah, with that being said, I believe that is it for my Mortal Kombat Dead by Daylight concept chapter. You guys definitely let me know what you think of it. I personally really like it. Yeah, I'm the person who came up with it, but like, just look at it from an objective point of view. I think this is a pretty decent way to implement the Mortal Kombat characters and aspects into Dead by Daylight in a way that doesn't seem out of place with Mortal Kombat not being a horror game. There are fun perks to be made, fun maps to have, fun killer powers. I love the gongs. I love the fighters popping out. I love the survivors too. I think Sonya and Johnny should definitely be characters who have voice lines. They've been doing that recently with characters, which is having them have voice lines, including Nicolas Cage, which is a crazy thing to say. Dead by Daylight has Nicolas Cage in it. If Johnny Cage comes to Mortal Kombat, then we're gonna have 2 people in Dead by Daylight named with the last name Cage. That would be sick. But yeah, I love the idea of this, and the fact that we do know that they have at least somewhat small part of their brain at the Dead by Daylight team has considered this, with Mortal Kombat being on the poll that they released. I think it's a pretty good sign. And with Mortal Kombat having a new game coming out and like 2 new movies coming out, you never know. But yeah, you guys let me know what you would do for a Mortal Kombat chapter concept. I would love to hear your thoughts, as well as your thoughts on my chapter concept, any changes you would make, any criticisms, any positive things you want to say, any small things that you would like to add, or whatever. I would love to add to that discussion and talk about it with you guys, since this is something I'm kind of passionate about, honestly. I really want this to happen. In fact, I would really like to get into contact with those people who make spotlight trailers or like the Dead by Daylight concept trailers, and try and like get this to happen. I know those types of people are probably very, very busy with making these trailers, because if you've seen some of them, they are very in-depth, complex. I don't know how they're able to make it look so good, but yeah. People like Dead by Daylight should hire those people. And you know what? They should hire me too, because I made better perks, a better power for a killer, better survivors than they ever could. I'm joking. I'm not qualified. Please. Don't have me. I don't, please. Dead by Daylight people, don't hire me. Bad idea. I'll talk about Mortal Kombat the whole time. But yeah, if you guys know how to get in contact with someone who can make a spotlight trailer, I would love for them to be able to post it on their channel, for me to post it on my channel. I think that would be super sick, super cool, using the perks, ideas, and stuff that I have from this video. Maybe some edits from people who know more about this stuff than I do. But yeah, you guys let me know. I would love to find someone, get in contact, make that a project that we can do in the future. Speaking of future projects, I think since we did Mortal Kombat coming to Dead by Daylight, it's only fair that we do Dead by Daylight going into Mortal Kombat, right? So let me know, you guys, if you want to see me trying to add Trapper into a Mortal Kombat game and discussing how his gameplay would work, his fatalities, his special moves, his super moves, all that stuff. I think that would be pretty sick too. You know? Got to do it both ways, all right? But yeah, check out my links in the description to see Mortal Kombat Retold, which is the podcast that I'm working on, my membership, my merch store. Those are 2 things that you can purchase from me. You don't have to, of course. It's always up to you guys whether you want to spend your own money on me. I don't really mind that much whether you do or don't. And then there's my Twitter, Instagram. Follow that if you want. And with that being said, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and yeah, I'll see you next time with all watch these. See ya.